Hello, everyone. It is Dan Mason here with a video on The Unthinking Thinking of Evolution, a case study in folly. The theory of evolution, especially when applied to plant life, collapses under its own weight when you stop and actually think about what it claims. The secular world tells us that plants, which have no brains, no consciousness, and no ability to plan, somehow figured out the most complex and strategic ways to move, grow, and reproduce across the earth. Without thinking, they thought of these strategies. Without planning, they planned survival mechanisms. Evolutionists want us to believe that blind, random processes led to plants designing sticky burrs that cling perfectly to animals and human pants. Floatable seeds like dandelions that ride the wind, and sweet nectar to attract bees for cross-pollination. All this without a single thought. Let's break this down. Plants without minds. Figured it out. The burr, the perfect design that clings to animal fur or the denim of your jeans, is supposed to have evolved over millions of years by random mutation and natural selection. But plants don't think. They don't test ideas. They don't strategize. They don't decide to grow hooks. Evolution tells us the plant just happened to create structures that, by sheer coincidence, stick to animals and help them spread. Evolution says this happened over countless generations of accidents. That's the storyline. But stop and think. The plant had to solve multiple problems in sequence. Problem 1. I need to spread. Problem 2, I need to stick to something. Problem 3, I need to stick to the right thing that moves. Problem 4, I need to fall off in the right place where I can grow. Problem 5, I need to develop all this without knowing what I'm doing. How does a mindless, thoughtless organism accomplish this? Evolution offers no answer beyond, it just happened. That's not science. That's a faith statement wrapped in a lab coat. Circular reasoning. The plant survived. Because it spread and it spread because it survived, evolution is riddled with circular reasoning. It tells us the plant survived because it could spread its seeds. It spread its seeds because it survived. That's not an explanation. That's a circle. Here's the evolutionary logic in plain terms. Why did the plant develop hooks? Because plants with hooks survived. Why did they survive? Because they had hooks. You're back where you started. Evolution keeps turning the wheel but never moves forward. The absurdity of probabilities evolution also overlooks the fundamental issue of probability. For a sticky burr to develop, several mutations must happen in the correct sequence, affecting the right cells with no guiding hand. This process is blind. There's no trial and error lab. There's no coach. There's no teacher. If even one step in the chain fails, the whole system collapses. And even if the seed sticks to an animal, there's no guarantee it will fall off in good soil. Sometimes it falls on concrete, sometimes in the water, sometimes on a highway. Evolution ignores the staggering number of failures required to get a few wins. There's no intelligence calculating odds. Evolution relies on sheer luck, but it presents this luck as inevitability. Unthinking thinking. Plants that decided to fly through the air, plants that thought to use animals as transport, plants that chose to produce sweet nectar to lure pollinators. These are not simple random events. These are coordinated systems that require foreknowledge and integrated design. If the plant produces sweet nectar but the pollinator doesn't yet exist, the system fails. If the pollinator exists, but the flower hasn't developed the right color, scent, or shape to attract it, the system fails. Evolution suggests that these things just happened to develop together. This isn't science. This is storytelling. The fallacy of time-solving problems. One of the most overused crutches of evolutionary thinking is the appeal to deep time. The argument says, it's improbable, yes, but over millions of years anything is possible. No, time does not solve the problem. If the probability is near zero, time only makes you wait longer for something that never happens. Giving more time to impossible odds doesn't make the odds better. This is the fallacy of infinite patience. Saying that burrs, pollen, and dandelions figured it out over time is no different from saying a tornado in a junkyard will eventually build a fighter jet if you just wait long enough. Complexity does not arise from chaos. Intelligence does not spring from randomness, evolution's lazy explanation. When pressed, the evolutionist simply says, natural selection did it. But natural selection selects. It doesn't create. It doesn't invent. It doesn't design. It's a filter, not a builder. You can't filter what isn't there. So where did the sticky burr come from? Where did the winged seed come from? Where did the sweet nectar come from? Evolution provides no creative mechanism. It just says, it happened. This is intellectual laziness, and it's called science. The designer is obvious. When you look at the burr that clings perfectly, the dandelion that floats beautifully, the complex relationship between the flower and the bee, you don't see an accident. You see design. You see the purpose. You see coordination. Design requires a designer. Purpose requires a mind. Coordination requires intelligence. Only a fool would look at a burr and think, yes, this is the product of blind, unthinking forces that just happen to solve complex problems better than the smartest human engineers. The book of Romans says it plainly. For the invisible things of him, from the creation of the world, are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Romans 1 verse 20. God left his fingerprints everywhere. You can't miss them unless you choose to ignore them. The idiocy of evolution is that it demands plants to think without thinking, to plan without planning, to design without a designer. This isn't science. This is blind faith in the absurd. Please like and subscribe to learn more.